Imagine waking up one day and realizing that the person you've spent your entire life becoming was never really you. Not the way you dress, not the job you worked so hard for, nor the dreams you tell others you're chasing. A hollow shock sinks into your stomach, like the moment you realize you've walked through the wrong door. You've chosen your battles based on someone else's fears. You've defined success by borrowed metrics, chased happiness through inherited desires, and silenced your deepest instincts because they were too much, too weird, or not realistic. But whose voice was it that told you that? In the first place, your parents, your culture, your God, your frightened inner child, just trying to survive. Somewhere along the way, the raw, unfiltered version of Youtha, one who dreamed wildly, who questioned everything, who had an instinct for danger and wonder and freedom, was buried under a pile of masks. And perhaps you didn't even notice. Most people don't, because here's the brutal truth: the world doesn't want you to be who you truly are. The world wants you to be not wild, not real. And yet, buried beneath all the conditioning, Nietzsche believed something sacred still lived within you. He called it the will to power, but not power over others, power over yourself, power to overcome what you've been taught to believe, power to destroy the version of you that never really lived. What if your true self isn't something you find but something you become? Not by obeying, but by revolting. Not by pleasing others, but by risking everything for the strange and beautiful truth that lives inside you. Let's not pretend this is easy. You must unlearn the cowardice that was sold to you as virtue. You must embrace suffering, not run from it. You must walk willingly into the abyss of the unknown. Why you've always felt different. What if the anxiety you carry isn't a sign of disorder, but of misalignment? What if the depression you feel isn't a chemical glitch, but the soul's rebellion against a life of quiet conformity? What if your discomfort isn't proof that you're broken, but the only part of you still awake, still fighting, still whispering beneath the noise? This is not who I really am. And here's the most terrifying part. You may already know the truth. You may have always known it. You just didn't believe you were allowed to live it, so you lied to yourself. You made compromises. You stayed small. You wore masks until you forgot there was even a face beneath them. And the longer you did, the more you became a stranger to your own life. But Nietzsche's philosophy wasn't just critique, it was a rebellion, a blueprint, a call to arms for the individual who refuses to be swallowed by the herd. He believed the highest act of creation is the great question. Are you who you truly are, or who you were told to be? Are your desires yours or inherited? Are your beliefs born of courage or fear? Are you living with a fierce love for truth or a quiet terror of being rejected for it? And perhaps the most important question of all, what must die within you for your real life to begin? Because to become who you are, Nietzsche wrote, you must become who you are, not and burn it away. This isn't a feel-good story. End. The tragedy is not that people are weak. The tragedy is that people are conditioned from the very beginning to confuse survival with authenticity. And when you're very young, survival always wins. You come into the world screaming with instincts, wild with wonder, and raw with truth. But the world doesn't meet that rawness with reverence. It meets it with rules. Parents scold, teachers correct, society molds. The message is clear: be good, be quiet, be normal, not because they hate you, but because they were broken. And so you learn early that certain parts of yourself are dangerous. Your rage, unacceptable. Your wild creativity, childish. Your sadness, inconvenient. Your intensity, too much. Piece by piece, the real you is split apart. This Jung called the formation of the persona, the mask you build to meet the world. It smiles when you want to scream. It nods when you want to run. It agrees when your soul aches in protest. And hidden behind that mask is everything you were told not to be. Jung called this your shadow, not just the dark parts, but the exiled ones, the powerful instincts you disowned, the untamed emotions, the unacceptable truths, all buried beneath layers of social obedience. And here's the insidious part. You start to believe the mask is you. You forget you had another face. You forget the shadow is still alive. And worse, you start to project it. The repressed shadow doesn't die. It leaks in addictions, in sabotage, in rage you don't understand, in relationships you destroy, in dreams you refuse to chase, and the more you run from it, the more it controls you. Carl Jung warned us, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. But how do you make it conscious when the world rewards the unconscious version of you? Let's be clear, society has no interest in your true self. Your true self doesn't fit inside systems. It doesn't buy what it's told to buy. It doesn't vote how it's told to vote. It doesn't consume, compare, or obey blindly. It resists being categorized, labeled, or sold. That kind of person, they're dangerous, they're unmanageable. They can't be marketed to or manipulated. So what happens? You're praised when you conform, rewarded when you obey, respected when you suppress your instincts in favor of productivity. You get approval for playing roles, not for being real. As Nietzsche wrote, in individuals, insanity is rare, but in groups, parties, nations, and epochs, it is the rule. We live in an age where sanity is redefined as conformity to function in modern society. You are expected to perform a version of yourself so disconnected from your soul that depression becomes normal. Anxiety becomes a feature, not a flaw. Disconnection is the price of participation. No one tells you the mask has consequences, but Nietzsche did. He saw that modern man had become spiritually anesthetized, numbed by comfort, dulled by duty, castrated by convention, a creature of habits, not meaning, of schedules, not passions, of status, not soul. He called this the condition of the last man. The last man doesn't rebel. He doesn't dream wildly or love dangerously. He doesn't seek truth, he seeks safety. He avoids suffering at all costs, even if it means forfeiting everything that once made him human. Sound familiar? We've built an entire world optimized to produce last men, soothing them with entertainment, sedating them with consumption, keeping them too busy, too distracted, too dependent, to ever awaken. And if you do awaken, if something inside you begins to stir you, feel insane, because when you begin to question, you enter a dangerous space. The foundation cracks, the story collapses. The truth is inconvenient because it reveals this: the life you inherited is not the life you were meant to live. The thoughts you think are not your own, and the self you call I is a patchwork of survival strategies. Nietzsche, like Jung, knew this illusion wasn't sustainable. But unlike many thinkers, he didn't seek comfort in collective ideals or spiritual bypasses. He turned inward into the fire. He believed that the human being, in their highest form, is not a servant of ideology or a cog in society. They are a creator, a self-overcoming force of nature. But first, they must destroy what is false. This is the part no one wants to hear, because unmasking yourself hurts. Shadow work is not an Instagram trend. It is a spiritual crucifixion. It means looking at the parts of you were taught to hate and loving them into transformation. It means saying no to the life others expect and risking exile for the sake of truth. It means becoming, as Nietzsche wrote, the Übermensch, not a superior being in the fascist sense, but a fully realized human who has transcended herd morality, cultural hypnosis, and inherited fear. And the first step to that, admitting you are not yet who you could be, that your life is still shaped more by fear than vision, that your potential still sleeps beneath layers of polite self-denial, that the chains around you are not made of steel, but stories. This realization is terrifying, but it is also freedom, because only when you see the trap can you begin to escape it. Only when you recognize the mask can you begin to remove it. Only when you feel the shadow can you integrate its power. This is the threshold, the line between the false self and the becoming self, and crossing it is the beginning of real life. You may think that avoiding your true self is the safer choice. You may believe that keeping the peace, staying productive, fulfilling expectations, and performing your roles makes you functional, normal, even successful. But deep down, something is rotting. Because the price of avoiding your true self is not just missed potential, it's spiritual starvation. And the worst part, you don't even notice it at first. You function, you smile, you attend meetings, you post updates, you laugh when expected, you keep up appearances. Leaks through it feels like a dull ache in the soul, like living with the volume turned down, like watching your own life through a thick pane of glass. You can't name it, but it's always there. Psychologists call it cognitive dissonance. Nietzsche called it bad faith. Jung called it soul loss. And if left unchecked, it leads to something modern society has normalized: chronic self-alienation. You become a stranger to your own life. You speak in voices that aren't yours. You pursue goals that leave you empty. You love in ways that feel hollow. You succeed in the eyes of others, but fail in your own. And this is where the unseen consequences begin to multiply. 1. Internal numbness becomes the default when you bury your true desires for long enough. You become what the neuroscientist Antonio Damasio called emotionally decoupled. The signals of your inner world, intuition, longing, resistance, joy go quiet. Your body stays alive, but your spirit moves like it's underwater. You confuse numbness with peace. You call your detachment maturity. You say things like, "I'm fine," and believe it. But deep down, you're not fine. You're just anesthetized, and eventually something cracks. 2. Your shadow finds other ways to emerge. Remember, what you repress doesn't die. It finds other ways to surface. In the addiction you can't shake, in the anger you unleash on the wrong people, in the depression that seems to come from nowhere, in the burnout that turns rest into guilt, in the panic attacks the doom scrolling, the obsessions. These are not random disorders. They are symptoms of a life disconnected from truth and modern psychiatry, as Gabor Mate argues, often treats these symptoms as glitches, not messages. But what if anxiety isn't your enemy, but your alarm system? What if depression isn't dysfunction, but the soul saying, "This life is not working"? 3. You create a persona that cannot be loved. One of the cruelest consequences of the false self is this: it makes you unlovable, not because you're unworthy, but because no one can love the person you're pretending to be. Even when people say, "I love you," a voice in your head whispers, if they knew the real me, they wouldn't. You sabotage intimacy because it threatens exposure. You attract partners who love your mask, not your essence. You keep friends who validate your performance, not your truth. And this isolation becomes self-perpetuating. You suffer in silence, while your real self starves behind the curtain. Point 4. The culture reinforces the illusion. Here's the most insidious part. The world congratulates you for betraying yourself. You get praise for being easy to work with. You're promoted for hiding your emotions. You're liked for not being too opinionated. You're admired for your success, even if it's killing your joy. You are rewarded for becoming less human, and the moment you try to change, to say no, to quit, to rest, your job becomes unstable. People accuse you of being selfish or not the same, because you're not. You're waking up, and waking up is always seen as a threat to those still asleep. 5. You die without ever having lived. Nietzsche wrote of the greatest tragedy. The individual has always had to struggle to keep from being overwhelmed by the tribe. If you try it, you will often be lonely and sometimes frightened. But no price is too high to pay for the privilege of owning yourself. In predictability, in quiet desperation, they never wrote the book. They never lived the dream. They never asked the real questions. They never rebelled. They never created themselves. They just played the part they were handed, spoke the lines, and called it a life. But deep inside them, inside youth, there is still a flame, dimmed perhaps, but not dead, not yet. And if you've read this far, then some part of you still remembers it. Some part of you is still hungry, still listening, still ready. The question is, what will you do with this realization? Because now you see the cage, you feel the chains, you hear the voice of the mask and the silence of your buried truth. The false self is strong, but it is not you. It is a survival mechanism, a costume, a construct, and it is not worthy of your entire life. So what now? Now begins the rebellion, the revolt against who you've been, so you can become who you are. There comes a moment quiet, not from your past, not even from the voice in your head that still trembles with inherited fear. You simply stop, and in that stillness, you begin, not as a reaction, not as a rebellion against others, but as a rebellion for something, for truth, for essence, for becoming. This is not about ego. It is about reclaiming the inner throne you abandoned the moment you let the world define. Nietzsche did not believe in passively waiting for transformation. He believed in will, in fire, in becoming your own damn resurrection. And that begins with a single, terrifying act. You must kill the false self, not gently, not with nostalgia or apology, but with the rage of a soul tired of pretending. That identity you've polished for years, the obedient child, the good employee, the likable friend, the humble achiever, must die, because only then can something real emerge. Step 1. Burn the scripts you were given. You were handed a script at birth. It had lines like, "Be useful. Don't make people uncomfortable. Follow the rules. Play it safe. Do what's expected. Don't dream too big." But who wrote that script? Who benefits from you staying in it? Governments benefit from compliant citizens. Corporations benefit from insecure consumers. Religions benefit from guilty followers. Social groups benefit from unspoken conformity. But you become a ghost, visible but absent, moving but not alive. Burn the script, literally if you must. Write it out, read it aloud, then destroy it, and then ask, what story do you want to live? Step 2. Face the shadow without flinching. Your shadow isn't evil, it is simply unloved. The envy, the lust, the rage, the jealousy, the shame, the desire to destroy, the need to be seen. They are not your enemies. They are your teachers. Every suppressed part of you is holding a secret, a piece of your power. The anger you hide, it's your boundary. The desire you fear, it's your aliveness. It's your wound begging for truth. Believed that to transcend yourself, you must first embrace yourself entirely. Even the parts you've disowned, especially those. This is what it means to integrate, to make peace with your inner war, to become whole, not perfect. And it is the only way out of the maze of self-avoidance. Step 3. Suffer consciously. Yes, suffering is part of the journey. But Nietzsche made one distinction that changes everything. To live is to suffer, but to survive is to find some meaning in the suffering. Most people suffer unconsciously, chasing empty pleasures, numbing pain, avoiding discomfort. But conscious suffering, that's the crucible of transformation. Every time you choose truth over approval, suffering. Every time you face your fear and move anyways, suffering. But through it, something is forged. Not a victim, not a follower, not even a survivor, but a creator, the one who shapes meaning from chaos. 4. Create. Don't conform. To Nietzsche, the ultimate act of freedom was not destruction, but creation. One must still have chaos in oneself to be able to give birth to a dancing star. Once the false has burned, you must begin the difficult, holy work of becoming something new, not according to the world, according to your inner necessity. Write your own code of values. Speak with your own voice. Build something with your own hands. Live by a standard only you understand. And don't explain yourself. Don't shrink. Don't seek approval from the very systems you left behind. Your task is not to be understood. Your task is to become indivisible from your truth, even if it costs you everything, especially then. Step 5. Walk alone until you're not. There is a phase no one warns you about. It's the desert. After the mask is removed, before the new self is fully born, there is a space of terrifying solitude. You no longer fit in with the herd. You don't yet belong to the future. You feel like a stranger in both worlds. This is not a mistake. It is the initiation. This is where false attachments fall away. This is where old dreams collapse. This is where the loneliness becomes a sacred teacher. If you endure it without running, without numbing, you will emerge dangerous and free, and you will find others. Because the paradox is this: once you become radically yourself, but the right ones, the ones who speak fire and breathe honesty and have no use for small talk. And in that communion, you will know a deeper kind of belonging, not because you fit in, but because you finally stand out for the right reasons. This is the rebellion. It is not loud. It is not glamorous. It will not win you applause, but it will give you something far more powerful, yourself. And when you meet that self naked, unmasked, alive, you will weep, not out of sadness, but because you'll realize how long you lived without them. There is a moment after the fire, after the mask has burned, the shadow has been embraced, and the desert has been crossed. It does not arrive with lightning or applause. It comes quietly like a whisper through the rubble. It is the moment you realize there was never anyone else. You were meant to become, not a higher version, not a perfect version, just the uncorrupted, unfiltered, unapologetic essence of what you already are. This is the final, most powerful truth, that you were not broken, that you were not wrong, that you were not too much or not enough, waiting to be fixed. You were simply buried under roles, buried under fear, buried under stories that were never yours, and now you're not. Now, for the first time, you're whole. Nietzsche's entire philosophy collapses into this. You were not born to follow a path. You were born to forge one, the Übermensch, the higher self, the great becoming. It is not a future achievement. It is not some final state of glory or perfection. It is a moment-by-moment act of alignment, when your actions match your values, when your voice matches your soul, when your outer world reflects your inner truth. And that's when the great paradox reveals itself. You are most powerful, not when you conquer others, but when you stop betraying yourself. The world will never give you permission to be free. Here's what no one tells you. The world will never come and hand you your identity. It will never say, now is the right time. It will never offer you the perfect conditions for self-transformation. In fact, it will fight you. It will mock your attempts. It will tempt you back into comfort. It will seduce you with numbness and distract you with noise. Why? Because your freedom exposes everyone else's cage. Your clarity reminds them of their confusion. Your truth makes their lies harder to live with. Your rebellion threatens the illusion they built their entire life upon. But still, you must continue. You don't owe them comfort. You owe yourself freedom. You are the meaning you seek. Nietzsche famously declared, God is dead. But what he meant was not despair. He meant responsibility. The old stories are gone. The ready-made meanings have collapsed. The external authorities are fading now. The burden and the glory falls to you. No one is coming to save you. No one is coming to tell you who to be. There is no map, no dogma, no finish line. There is only you and the courage to become. You must build your values. Forge your purpose. Live as if your life is a work of art. You never stop sculpting. This is terrifying, but it is also sacred, because once you realize that meaning is not found, is created, you stop waiting. You start living. Freedom is not comfort, it's responsibility. Our condition to believe that freedom is ease, that it means no rules, no pain, no expectations. But Nietzsche knew better. True freedom is the discipline to choose your own chains, the courage to bear your own suffering, the strength to walk alone, even when the world howls against you. You are not free because life is easy. You are free because no one owns your mind anymore. You are free because your soul no longer asks for permission. You are free because your actions now echo from a place far deeper than approval. You have become the source, the final realization you never had to become someone else. You only had to remember who you were before the world taught you to forget, before the shame, before the guilt, before the compromise and the performance. The journey wasn't about building a new self. It was about uncovering the one buried beneath all the noise. And now that you've found them, there's only one thing left to do. Live as them every day, every word, every decision, no matter who walks away, no matter what you lose, no matter how uncertain the road becomes, because that road wild, unpaved, and blazing with uncertainty is the only one that belongs to you. And for the first time, you will walk it with your whole self intact. So here's the truth, Nietzsche's final gift to you. You are not here to be liked. You are not here to be understood. You are not here to be safe. You are here to become dot, to become fire, to become form, to become the living expression of something this world has never seen before you.